Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends here. Thanks for joining me today for an episode that I am so excited to do. This represents the culmination of a project that took me years to complete and something that is right in the wheelhouse of my early collecting memories and nostalgia and all those things that are just so great about our hobby. It's going to be 1990 Topps related, and I'll try to keep this brief. For those of you that have been subscribed for a while or checked out other videos of mine, you've probably heard me or seen me show off cards from this set, but I love 1990 Topps baseball. And the reason being, that's the first set that I ever collected as a kid. In the spring of 1990, my brothers and I would go to the local hobby shop and pick up wax packs exactly like this one that you see here with the gum inside, rip them open and trade with each other and work on completing our sets and studying the game and getting to know all the players and the teams. In a pre-internet era, baseball cards were the way that I became familiar with the sport. It was great. I loved it. I'd gotten into hockey cards the winter prior, and so 1990 in the spring, that was my first exposure to Topps baseball cards and their glorious wax wrappers, and I was hooked. And still am, more than 30 years later. So I've got a soft spot for 1990 Topps. I've done plenty of videos where I've shown off my 1990 collection. Of course, anyone can go on eBay and buy a 1990 Topps baseball set for probably, less money than it costs to ship it to you. But there are other ways to enjoy the release as well, whether it's, unopened packs like this one that I've saved here, graded cards of some of the players that I like the most, autographs, buybacks. There's plenty of ways to kind of re-enjoy that original set. But today's episode represents a small project that I completed, as I said at the outset, that I'm just so excited about. And I've told this story before as well, but Nolan Ryan was arguably my favorite player growing up when I was a kid through the early 90s. And it's primarily because of the 1990 Topps set. I didn't know much about baseball, present, past, anything when I started opening packs in 1990, but I learned pretty quickly that Nolan Ryan was obviously a big deal because in addition to having card number 1 on the checklist for his base card, Topps also gave us immediately following that a 4-card subset to pay tribute to his 5,000 career strikeouts, 1 card with each team that he played with. So we had the Mets in card number 2, the Angels for card number 3, the Astros for number 4, and then, of course, we had the tipping of the cap Texas Rangers card at slot number 5. As it so happened, the Rangers were the last team that he'd ever play for. So even though he didn't retire until a few years later, this set went down as a perfect representation of his career. So you can see I've picked these all up in PSA 9 slabs just due to my love of that insert set, or that subset, I should say, from the 1990 Topps release. It spawned not only my love of baseball cards, but my love of Nolan Ryan as a player. I would then go on to read, a couple of books and, study up on this guy, just absorb everything I could. And he was definitely a childhood idol of mine. Well, recently, as I mentioned, and I've teased a couple of times now, we're just going to get right down to it. I completed a project that is sort of mind-blowing, at least to me. I hope you'll share in my enthusiasm as I reveal this. And let me make some space here, but was fortunate enough over time, and I think this took me 4 or 5 years, keeping my ear to the ground and my eyes open, to pick up an autographed and authenticated autographed version of card number 1 that we saw in the background earlier. Nolan Ryan for the Texas Rangers. Always loved this image. I think the autograph here is just amazing. It's bright and bold and PSA authenticated. Looks gorgeous. And this is a card that, if you had told my 8-year-old self back in the spring of 1990 that I would one day own an autographed copy of, my head quite literally would have exploded. And there would be no Shoebox Legends as you know it today. So I'm glad that didn't happen, but super happy to have it 30 years later. Honored to own that card, and it's definitely a centerpiece for my Nolan Ryan collection, which I'll get to in a future video. I haven't shown off a ton of Nolan Ryan stuff, but I do have quite a bit. But as you maybe have guessed, this goes beyond that, this project. It did not take me many years to find just this one card. It took me many years to put together a run of Nolan Ryan 1990 Topps. autographs. So here is card number 2 with the Mets, again in bold blue Sharpie and PSA authenticated. Nice young shot of Nolan there with the Miracle Mets. Of course, won his World Series very early on in his career. Check that box, almost right out of the gate, similar to like a Juan Soto in that sense. So beautiful one there. I like the auto a little bit better on the base card, but not going to be picky when it comes to these. And you can probably guess where this is going, but here is card number 3 for the California Angels. Another nice, bold autograph there. I mean, in addition to being one of the better pitchers in the history of the game, probably the best power pitcher for the longest duration of time in the history of the game, he has a really nice autograph. He just did a fantastic job signing these cards. This one I landed only recently, and this is the one that actually completed my collection for me. Card number 4 from his time with the Houston Astros. And again, same as all of the other ones that we looked at, just a really bold, beautiful autograph. And then last, but certainly not least, I also was able to pick up card number 5, autographed and PSA authenticated, the tip of the cap, Texas Rangers. Salute to the fans there. Perfect card for number 5 on this checklist, and probably the biggest and boldest autograph of any of the 5 that I picked up. So there are slight differences here in, ink color and, pen width and things like that. But, overall, just ecstatic that I was able to accumulate this entire collection of his autos, going back to the first set that ever inspired me here in the hobby. It took me quite a while to do, as I said. A couple of these I got years back, and then there was definitely a lull where I just could not find at any price at all the cards that I was still missing. Got to the point where I was actually considering sending off to Nolan, just buying these cards raw. I believe you can pay a fee, whether it's $75 or $100 or something like that, and send the card to his foundation and he'll sign it. So when I was down to the final 2 for well over like a year or 2, starting to think it wasn't going to happen, I debated about sending off some raw copies and then sending them into PSA for authentication. But that's a process I'm not overly familiar with. And ultimately, patience paid off, found those last couple, and was able to bring them home and call this autograph collection complete. Maybe hard to hear it in my voice, but trust me, I've got a giant smile on my face just looking at these. These are honestly 5 of my favorite cards in my entire collection right now, just because of the sentimental meaning that they have to me, of this being my first ever love on the baseball card front, and of course Nolan's esteemed career, and the fact that these 5 cards are really what made him a childhood hero in my eyes, at least initially. So mind blown here that I was able to complete this. Wanted to show it off. I sometimes have a save the best for last mentality with respect to my channel, and I never seem to get around to some of the best stuff. But as soon as I got these in hand, I knew that I just wanted to give them some time on the channel and share in my joy with all of you. Anyone who's ever done a project in the hobby that takes, years of patience and then finally finished it probably knows that feeling of calling something done that you weren't sure you were ever going to complete. It's just a great feeling, and I'm just so excited to have these. So if I had to sell every card I own and I could only keep, say, 10, I think these 5 would actually survive the cut, and all 5 of these would be in the final 10 cards that I would let go from my clutch. So that's a wrap for today. Really appreciate you coming by and listening to me wax nostalgic about my love of Nolan Ryan, and to check out this kind of cool autograph project that I've been able to assemble. So I hope you enjoyed this half as much as I did, and I really appreciate it. And I'll be back in the very near future with some more sports card content. Until then, take care and enjoy the hobby, everybody.